Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives, and as promised on Saturday, it's time we look at the final tie-ins for the Spider-Verse storyline. In this case, as I said, we're going to be taking a look at Spider-Man 2099. Now, this isn't the first time that Spider-Man 2099 has taken center stage in these vlogs, as when I was discussing the lead-in material, one of the issues that we did look at was issue 5 of the second run of his book, and that actually did showcase how Miguel was kind of sort of pulled into Spider-Verse, as if you remember in that issue, his counterpart from the Exile series was trying to reach out to alternate versions of himself, but sadly any other Miguel that he was going to pick was killed off by Moreland, and when he tried reaching his main universe counterpart, the one that we actually know from the Spider-Man 2099 books, he was sadly killed off just as he opened a portal to Earth 616, resulting in Moreland throwing his body through, and, well, the main universe Miguel realizing, okay, maybe I need to look into this, and thus he went to search out Peter Parker, which of course led to Spider-Verse. However, the next issue in his solo book actually followed up from events from Spider-Verse, and from there, in the next two issues we'll be looking at, we're more focused on what he was doing off panel while the main Spider-Verse event was going on. So if we want to talk about that, let's get into where we left off with him before this issue. And of course, like I said, it all goes back to the meeting between the Spider Armies. And in this case, just as I said, when the Spider Army went to go recruit Otto and his superior Spider Army, the overwhelming amount of Spider Totem energy managed to draw one of the inheritors right to their stronghold. In this case, it was Deimos. I apologize that I kept forgetting to mention his name in the introduction. While the battle did result in Deimos being killed, he did eventually come back with Brix and Bora, and from there, that's when the away team started forming. We got Cindy Moon as she jumped off to try and flee from the Spider Army, with Spider-Woman and Spider-Man Noir going with him. We got the clone crew, in this case Ben Reilly, Kane Parker, and Ultimate Jessica Drew, going off to figure out how to deal with the whole cloning shenanigans of the Inheritors, as they figured out they were prolonging their lifespan with clones. But as for Miguel, well, as I've talked about, so Otto and his team were stationed in 2099, his home turf. And so as the Spiders were all disbanding, Miguel decided to take advantage of an opportunity and went for Deimos' dead body. And basically what he was going to do is that he was going to take the dead body away to have it examined, and to assist him, he got two other Spideys that were present to go with him. In this case, the six-armed Spider-Man and Lady Spider. But unfortunately, though, as they made their getaway, Deimos, Brix, and Bora saw him, and so while Deimos ordered Brix and Bora to pursue Cindy, Deimos himself decided to pursue Miguel and co. to try and retrieve his body, because, well, they didn't want the Spider Army to have access to that, which is where we left off with Miguel. Again, which is where we left off with Miguel, and where this issue picks up, as it actually opens at Alchemax, because, after all, as I mentioned when I looked at issue 5, which, yeah, I might as well say this right now, we're going to be looking at Spider-Man 2099, Volume 2, Number 6, because, I'm sorry I forgot to mention that, I was just getting caught up in the plot summary, but, yeah, as I mentioned with Miguel, with the gimmick for this new solo series for Spider-Man 2099, the gimmick was that Miguel had been trapped in the present day, and basically the one responsible for that, Tyler Stone, well, the issue actually opens up with him patting himself on the back and congratulating himself, as from his perspective, that event happened like 1 or 2 hours ago. So he's just all happy. Alchemax is free from dealing with Spider-Man. He's not going to be a thorn in their side anymore. He's just going to kick back, relax, go home, maybe take some time for himself, just have an evening, Well, that doesn't really last very long, as his assistant, Winston, tells him that he just got forwarded an image from the public eye. And so, as Tyler goes to see what the image is, he is greeted to a picture of Spider-Man 2099, the six-armed Spider-Man, and Lady Spider, all just swinging through Nueva York, which, yeah, this doesn't make him very happy, especially since, like I said, he was just congratulating himself for a job well done, and now look, Spider-Man's back, and this time he's not alone. He's like, how could he get back so quickly? And of course, Winston points out it's time travel. He probably could have spent an unknown amount of time in the past and then come back. Again, I'm still going to question why he thinks sending him back to 2014 was a good idea, because again, he's in the past. He can screw with stuff. He can kind of fuck you up, dude. But either way, yeah, at this point, Tyler realizes, yeah, he wants to keep an eye on this, and so he orders Winston to tell the public eye to keep an eye on Spider-Man, and says that if he stops for any reason, to go in, engage, and take him out. Because yeah, Tyler's being overly paranoid. In the meantime, though, back with Miguel and co., well, they're actually looking for a place to hunker down. As off-panel, they managed to hide Deimos' body for further study, but Miguel kind of has his own plans going on, so he decides that their base of operations will be his brother Gabriel's apartment. And as they come in, well, Gabe is of course shocked to see Miguel with two other spider people because, well, it's kind of overwhelming. But he freaks out when he meets with Six-Armed Spider-Man because again he's Spider-Man with 6 arms. Though he does get blushy when he meets May Riley because, well, she's attractive, and he's just kind of flustery and all gimmicky, and he's just at one point as he just starts shaking her hand, doesn't stop. You can stop shaking my hand now. When he stops, he's just blushing. It's just kind of nice. I like it. But either way, Miguel and the two other Spideys do inform Gabe about what the heck's going on with Spider-Verse, how they're being hunted by the Inheritors, and that one of them is after them because they have his dead body. And Gabe, well, when he hears that, he asks a very obvious question. Why are you here then? Because if he's tracking them, they'll probably lead him right back here. But Miguel says that he doesn't plan to lead him back here. He just needs a temporary base of operations because he wants to rally the forces, so to speak. By which I mean, Miguel wants to contact the other heroes of 2099 and get their help on this because, well, the Inheritors are mostly used to dealing with spider people, so he wants to try and mix it up with other heroes, which, you know what, that's a fair policy, and I do like that. While Spider-Man 2099 does tend to get the most mention when it comes to, well, 2099, there are other superheroes there. There are other versions of Marvel heroes that exist there. There's, like, the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom, the Punisher, like he said. There's even a Hulk and Ghost Rider 2099. Which I'm special mentioning because if on the off chance that anyone from Marvel is watching this vlog, where are my trades for those two? Thank you. I want to read about them. I want to read about Hulk and Ghost Rider 2099. They look so damn cool. Either way, okay, off topic. But either way, yeah, Miguel, like I said, Miguel just wants to try and mix things up, thinking the Inheritors won't be able to deal with this, won't be able to deal with these different variety of heroes, but sadly Miguel never gets a chance to implement this plan, as immediately after he announces that's what he wants to do, Deimos kind of arrives at their doorstep. But more specifically, he punches a hole right through their wall and demands to know where the hell his body is. As such, Miguel and co aren't really talking, and so they go on the offensive, with Six-Armed Spider-Man planning to distract Deimos while Lady Spider and Miguel get away, but that doesn't really go so well, as when he tries shooting webs at Deimos, all Deimos does is just grab the webs and pull him in, and, well, that's the end of his story. Six-Armed Spider-Man gets feasted on and gets thrown out the window, with Deimos complimenting him on the formula that he used to grow his 6 arms because it gave him some extra juice and made him much more tasty. As such, Lady Spider decides to try a similar strategy, distract him while Miguel tries getting away, but again, that strategy doesn't work well. But Lady Spider's life is saved from one important detail. She ain't a spider totem. As I mentioned when I talked about her debut story in Spider-Verse #1, she doesn't actually have superpowers. The whole spider gimmick is in her suit, with the extra legs and so forth. So, underneath it all, she's just a normal person, having just as many extraordinary abilities as you or I. I mean, she's extremely intelligent, she created those legs herself, but in terms of physical prowess, yeah, she's just a normal lady. And so while Deimos does say that she kind of contains the essence, it's coded in technology. She herself is no one special in a cosmic way of speaking. Although this also prompts Deimos to think, well, if I can't eat you, maybe there are other things I can do for you, as he pulls her in and tries to lick her face and even offers her a chance to essentially be his concubine. She thinks it's gross. Before she gets a chance to reject the offer, Deimos gets blasted with a laser, with a plasma rifle, which Gabe actually has around the apartment because, well, one of his girlfriends apparently kept it on standby just in case. As such, this does end up blasting Deimos out of the apartment, and so Miguel and May end up chasing after him, with May giving Gabriel a quick kiss as a thank you, and they pursue Deimos onto the street. And sure enough, Deimos starts immediately wrecking more shit, as now he's in a public place, and the public eye are now swooping in to try and take him out. This results in him Which you have to mention, the public eye are on flying scooters or whatever, and so Deimos jumps onto one of the scooters, throws its rider off, and then starts using it to blast at the other public eye officers. However, Miguel actually has a plan as he goes to the downed officer and decides to directly speak to Tyler Stone to them, as he's pretty sure that Tyler is watching them right now. And he tells Tyler that he wants him to that he's a little pissed that Tyler sent him back to the year 2014, but he's willing to give him a pass because he needs something. There's a lab in Alchemax that he wants him to leave open for him, and that if he doesn't want Spidey pretty much tells Tyler, if you don't want me to pound your face into the dirt, you'll open it up, and I'll owe you a favor. That's a deal of a lifetime, but it's going fast. And so Tyler Stone, who was listening in, does tell Winston to do what Spider-Man says. In the meantime, back with the battle, Lady Spider and Miguel manage to knock Deimos off of the Sky Cycle, and so they web him to a couple cars, but ultimately he's able to just shake it off, even further damning May because this is when she officially tells him to shove it when he once again tries to go with the whole offer type of thing. Either way, Miguel managed to land a nice nasty blow and then makes a getaway, with Deimos thinking that he's attempting to flee. As such, he ends up getting back on the Sky Cycle and chases after him, with May following after Miguel, wanting to know what the heck's going on, but Miguel just tells May to trust him. As such, they end up going straight for Alchemax, and something I should know, Spider-Man 29 has a glider cape on his suit, which was made from anti-grav material or whatever. But he's able to use this to glide towards Alchemax, and sure enough, Tyler did get his message and left the lab open for him. And so he tells May, trust me, and when I give the signal, you know what to do. And so as he flies towards the lab, Deimos does try catching up to him. But at this point, Miguel just flips around him, covers his eyes, tells May to do it now, and so she ends up shooting a couple web lines at the sky, at the flying police cycle or whatever, and manages to pull it in right into the lab, resulting in it just skidding right onto the floor and slamming into a wall. As such, Miguel and May end up coming right in, and while Deimos thinks that this doesn't really matter, while Deimos thinks that whatever, they just switch locations, there's no problem, he immediately kind of gets his foot thrown in his mouth as suddenly an electric surge comes up and traps Deimos. Yep, there's a reason Miguel wanted this specific lab. It turns out it's a lab for a stasis field, and it's a very powerful one, as apparently Miguel utilizes a similar thing to deal with the Venom of 2099. And the comic ends with Miguel smugly telling Deimos, welcome to Alchemax, you're gonna be here a while. So, okay, so, thoughts on this issue? It's fun. It's fun. What I like is that what I kind of like is that this feels like it's really kicking off a storyline. It's really just, here's the thing. I think what makes this work, too, I think what I like is that it works from two advantages. Like I just said, it works as the beginning of a storyline, but also it works to kind of keep the pace going from the Spider-Verse event. First, let's get to the start of it as a storyline. Imagine with me, if you will, if you're reading this run of Spider-Man 2099 as is, and you pick up the second volume and you pick up volume 2 in trade form, and you see that it's labeled Spider-Verse. You haven't read the main storyline, but you're wondering, well, what's this about? So you open it up and you see the first storyline is that Miguel is now back in 2099. Of course, you're probably wondering, if you haven't read Spider-Verse, well, how did this happen? Why is he back in 2099? But they give you a nice little Clip Notes version of what's going on, which honestly I think is a good way of getting anyone who only reads this book to go right back to the main storyline if they want to figure out what's going on. But on the off chance you don't, there is plenty of action to go around. And it immediately works because immediately after you're given the drive-by of what's going on with Spider-Verse, you meet an antagonist, in this case, Deimos. And the instant he shows up, it keeps the pace going. It keeps the action flowing. And I think that's a good way of kind of drawing you in for this, because you are showcased you're showcased something you don't understand. And likewise, after getting a drive-by version, you meet one of the bad guys, and you're wondering, well, what's his deal? Holy shit, what's going on? And the first thing he does, he kills another Spider-Man, which, yeah, again, it kind of sucks that Six-Armed Spidey had to die, especially since we did get to see him more often in individual stuff, i.e. Spider-Man Team Up #1. But at the same time, I do like how it carries the action over. And if you are a fan of Spider-Man 2099 exclusively, I do like how they keep referencing that. And what makes it better is that it does feel like there's still an underarching narration for what's going on. As with when it comes down to Tyler Stone, it starts with him just patting, like I said, it starts with him patting himself on the back and congratulating himself for getting rid of their Spider-Man problem, only for him to come knocking at for him to just kind of come knocking at his door. I feel like that's a good way of keeping everything going, because it makes you wonder what Spidey's gonna do now that he's back and how he's gonna retaliate to Tyler Stone. So I do like that, and but like I said, the action also keeps things going and is very kinetic and nice. And I think what helps too is the dialogue. I really love the dialogue. I think like when Miguel and Co arrive at Gabe's apartment, I love how Gabriel reacts to all three of them. He's just like all shocked, and when Miguel just talks about what's going on, I was like, oh yeah, sure, that's all normal. Like when he said. When he talks about these are Spider-Man dimensions, like, of course they're from other dimensions. Why wouldn't they be? And when Six-Armed Spidey mentions how he's a version of Spider-Man who took a formula and grew six arms, it's like, oh well, yeah, that's bound to happen. Like, I love that. You can just feel the sarcasm in his voice, because it's just him trying to register it, but having to just kind of roll with it at the same time. It's actually pretty funny. But again, I do kind of like how it keeps it going. And basically, yeah, it can be confusing. I will not deny that. I will admit it can be confusing if you're reading the Spider-Man 2099 books exclusively, and then you go right from issue 5 to issue 6 and see this character you know nothing about just starting to get his ass kicked. But again, what I do like is that it does still feel like an introduction to what's going on with Miguel. You got a drive-by version, and you just got thrown into, you just started meeting Deimos, but what I think works in that regard, and why I still am okay with it, is that again, it gives you it lets you know what's happening. You're introduced right to the bad guy, and you're given enough reasons to hate him because you see he's a creep, and you see just how powerful he is in comparison to the Spideys, and that he is a viable threat against even one of them. So I'll give you that. I think I'll give you that. And likewise, it does still showcase Miguel acting smart and taking advantage of a situation to try and get it on, to try and find a way to take Deimos down. Now again, it can be a problem if you're just exclusively reading Spider-Man 2099, as it does still feel like you have to run into the deep end of the pool, because again, this is issue 6 of his second run. Prior to this, you saw Miguel encountering Moreland, and then immediately thinking, okay, I gotta find Peter Parker, and now you got this. So there is still like a gap in what happened between issues, so you're kind of wondering what's going from A to B. Now, of course, you could probably if you are reading it like that, you could probably put pieces together and figure out that Deimos is related to Moreland, and that likewise, if this guy is anything like Moreland, he is going to be a problem, especially since he looks bigger. So I feel like you can still make certain connections there if you are following along with Spider-Man 2099. It's just that certain story beats definitely feel like they won't make sense unless you read the main storyline. So, okay, I will give it that. It does have enough kinetic energy that I feel like it can still be an exciting way to enter a new storyline. Very least, this is still one that does require you to read the main storyline in The Amazing Spider-Man to understand some certain points. So, again, there are elements that I think can still make it a good make it a good starting storyline for the next story arc. But again, it does still have some stuff. It still suffers some issues from being a tie-in. So, again, kind of a mixed bag. So, double-edged sword. I'm gonna say double-edged sword. I mean, double-edged sword. And it's ultimately up to you which edge of the sword you're on. Whether you're on the receiving end and are hurting, or whether you're holding it. So whatever. Either way, you get hurt. Yeah, either way you get hurt. Just forget the sword analogy. Either way, there are benefits and there are costs to doing it like this. But however, if you are reading Spider-Verse, I think this actually is a good way of keeping the action going. As prior to this, you saw Miguel as part of the Spider Army duking it out with the Inheritors and meeting these other Spider-Men. You saw a big loss when the Inheritors started wrecking their shit. When they started wrecking their shit and started taking out armies to the point where everybody had to retreat to go do their own things. Especially Miguel, as he took Deimos' body and ran off. It's a good way of keeping the action going with maybe a brief little thing to get any new readers informed on what's going on if they jump from one book to the next, or likewise just reading from Spider-Man 2099, which I guess that little snippet would be a good way of informing people read these other books. But again, it keeps the action going as immediately when Miguel and Co take their rest, Deimos arrives, signaling that they're still not out of the woods yet. This guy is still pursuing them, and he is still a viable threat, so they need to be on the offensive still. But again, it still offers something that I like. something I like. I love the interactions between the characters in that regard. When we see like when Miguel and Co when Miguel and May end up duking it out with Deimos, they have to accept. Like, they're obviously afraid of him and creeped out by him, but you got some honestly really kick-ass moments, like when Deimos is trying to creep on May, when suddenly he gets blasted by this laser, and you just see Gabe just holding it there, I think that's just awesome, especially since when May acts disgusted when he does and goes ew when Deimos offers, and then when he makes the offer, that's when he gets blasted, and Gabe says, "I think ew pretty much covers it." I like that. It's great. It's great. I love, and basically the stuff with Gabe is funny. I like seeing his reactions are hilarious. Him being flustered when he sees May is adorable, and likewise when she gives him a kiss. I just love how immediately his attitude goes from serious to perky. He's like, "Come back anytime." That's great. That's just great. Great, but likewise, it still keeps the action going, especially when the pair of Spideys follow him into the streets of Nueva York, and likewise Spider-Man ends up having to figure out ways to ends up thinking of a way to at least hold Deimos temporarily, as he managed to talk to Tyler and tells him to get the stasis chamber ready, and as a result, they take the battle there, and it ends on an honestly satisfactory note, as Deimos, who's just a big dumb lug, whose biggest gimmick is mostly his strength, falls for it hook, line, and sinker, and just falls right into their trap, being trapped in the stasis field, and honestly ending on a satisfying note, because as Miguel just taunts him and saying, "Welcome to Alchemax, you're not going to be leaving for a while." Which I think is nice. And I think is a good little change of pace, because most other comics that usually end on a cliffhanger usually have it end at some integral moment that makes you wonder what's going to happen next, what's going on. But for here, it's actually a rather satisfactory way of ending things, because it does feel like it's a victory, a small victory, yes, and ultimately it's a small victory, yes, but it's enough of a victory that the Spideys are able to get a moment to breathe, and I like that. I like that they're able to actually kind of put a pin in it and actually say, okay, that's taken care of. Let's go do something else. Let's go deal with something else. Then we'll get back to the serious stuff. I like that. It is nice to have a little satisfactory ending in that regard. Yes, it's still just a part of the main story, but at the very least, I do kind of like that, especially as it essentially does act as a pin to what we saw in Spider-Verse continuing on into this issue. So I dig it. It's fun. So overall, I think it's a fine issue. Again, it does still feel like a quick drive-by, and likewise, while I do like it, and while it has enough kinetic energy that I think it could be a good starting point for the Spider-Verse storyline for 2099, its biggest problem is also that it is a tie-in, and that if you want to fully understand it, you do have to read Spider-Verse. So, yeah, if you're just a Spider-Man 2099 fan, you do need to invest in those other books, which, yeah, you do find to be a problem sometimes. But with that said, if you do read those stuff, it does still carry with it the same energy. It fills you in on the important details without much hassle and bustle. The action is actually really fun. I like the character stuff, and really does feel like it's helping wrap up some loose threads from Spider-Verse before it gets into what Miguel needs to do properly in this storyline. So I dig it. A lot of fun. So I dig it. It's a lot of fun. Very fast-paced and kinetic, but self-contained enough so that it still feels like it's self-contained enough so that it still feels like it's carrying over the action from the main storyline. So there you go. It's a lot of fun. There you go. It's a lot of fun. I dig it. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. I hope you enjoyed the video, and tune in on Thursday as we take a look at the next issue and see exactly what Miguel and Lady Spider have planned for Deimos' dead body. So until then, hope you have a good evening, and take care.